Season 4 draws to a close then, taking most of its disruptive change of direction with it, so let's have a quick glance back over those diversions. The Klingons have made their presence known in the show properly, not least of which in one of them joining the main cast. The rest of them decided to go and give the Cardigans a kicking in a karmic change of fortunes for them. It's a move opposed by the Federation and the Bajorans, the latter of whom signed a peace treaty with their former oppressors last season. That puts both of them in the position of helping an erstwhile enemy, decisions that proper pissed off the Klingons and might explain why they were threatening war by the end of the season. That's not to say our other problems have gone away either. Bajor's political goulash might be on a low heat at the moment, but Earth itself had to deal with a failed military coup, and one that we silly humans have to take most of the blame for. The Marquis have popped back up again too, with Eddington going renegade, and Cassidy Yates getting caught smuggling for them as well. At least one of the above problems is indirectly linked to the Dominion, so they're still being dicks too, when they're not putting down rebellions in their own ranks or taking a dump on Odo anyway. Speaking of which, why don't we have a closer look at our principal players? Benny Sisko's been a busy lad this year. He was briefly made head of Starfleet security back on Earth, lost and then regained the job of emissary, spent some time as a lawyer for Worf, became sort of single again when Cassidy got nabbed smuggling for the Marquis, watched the evil version of his former wife cark it in an alternate universe, and still had time for a few jaunts into the Gamma Quadrant. Maybe shaving his head made him more streamlined. Perhaps most notable from a long-term point of view is him now accepting his role of Emissary of the Prophets for Bajor. It's a title he's always struggled with, until he saw somebody else making a proper pig's ear of the job. Given the competition, part of his acceptance may have been a realization that he can't really do any worse. Kira's new year has brought her a new partner. A meeting with former Resistance fighter Shakar last season has resulted in the pair going further than just rekindling their friendship, much to the frustration of others. Bonds have been forged elsewhere, too. She's also become responsible for Seagull Ducat's extramarital daughter, Zial, turning Kira into part big sister, part foster mum for her. Foster mum became actual mum, at least, kind of, when she took possession of Keiko's unborn child following an accident, one that conveniently accounts for the actor being pregnant herself. I wonder if they'd have still given her the new uniform if they'd known it was going to need alterations before the end of the season. A partial change of direction for Dax this season. She's still been involved in the whole Trill thing, briefly hooking up with a past partner from a few lifetimes ago, but adding Worf to the mix has aimed her in his direction. Curzon was an ambassador to the Klingons after all, so the connection isn't that far-fetched, even if it has accelerated a little faster than feels entirely plausible. But then she was willing to change her entire life last season for a guy she'd just met, so you could argue the breakneck pace is already established. Maybe that's the influence of Curzon again, him having been quite the ladies' man, but it still all feels a bit off when the character of Jadzia Dax was introduced on the premise of Joy and Trill largely being above such things. A few episodes of note for Bashir this season, including one of my personal favourites. The first is Our Man Bashir, a fun enough romp sending up films about a certain British spy and giving us some time with plain simple Garak while we're at it, but the most important story of the year for Bashir came near the end. The quickening gave him a rare failure and a reason to finally be open about what a cocky little gobshite he can be at times. It's what he's needed since being introduced and is the episode I always think of when I see a character humbled. The story does much to redeem the character in a number of ways, both in the eyes of the viewer and perhaps in his own. In terms of defining exactly who Bashir is, there will be only a single episode that surpasses it. The rule of O'Brien must suffer kicked up a notch this season, which is pretty fucking impressive when you consider he literally died last year. Spending 20 fake years in an alien brain prison proper messed him up, to the point where he became self-destructive as a result. That was on top of him having to adapt to old ways of doing things elsewhere. Keiko and Molly are back on the station now, so O'Brien's time as a married bachelor with Bashir drew to a close. Well, mostly anyway. Maybe that'll start creeping back in when he wants some space now that Kira's living with them too. All change for Odo, or perhaps more accurately, now a complete lack of change. His shape-shifting ability has been locked by his people after they judged him to be guilty of harming the founder who harmed him first and killing him instead of allowing himself to be killed. Dominion justice at its finest. Add to that his secret heartthrob Kira hooking up with someone else, and it's been a pretty shite year. That's not to say it's been all bad. He did technically get married and lowered his barrier to the bride in the process. Okay, it was a marriage of convenience to help her out, but it's still the first time he's actually had fun in a fair while, and fun is something that's been in short supply on the station. Resident dodgy bastard Quark has had an absolute stinker of a time. His cousin trying to kill him with a deliberately sabotaged ship somehow manages to be the least bollocks thing that happened to him this season. Landing on Earth in 1947 should have been a chance to take over the whole planet, but he didn't account for just how much of a complete and utter scumbag race we are until we nearly nuke ourselves extinct. Things went downhill from there, and the first visit from Brunt, FCA this season, left him with a number of broken bones and a lower profit margin. I'll let you decide which hurt him more. And that was but a taste of things to come, as Brunt's second trip ended with Quark as an exile. That'll mean no opportunities to do business with other Ferengi, but the upside is that every potential trade from now on will be with someone who's less of a bastard than he is. Silver lining and all that. Very much a mixed bag for Jake this time round. The character was given this season's standout episode in The Visitor, though it's fair to say a significant portion of that was due to Tony Todd rather than Cirroc Lofton. The high of that was matched by the low of Jake and the talent vampire from outer space, widely considered to be the stinker in an otherwise mostly strong season. For your reference, its rating on IMDb is lower than Move Along Home. Other stuff was more family-oriented, as he got to spend time with his granddad and his dead mum's evil twin. When you add her carking it to losing his dad in The Visitor, you could argue that Jake has now technically lost a parent no fewer than 3 times. Worf, son of Moog, favoured punching bag of the Enterprise D, has joined our motley crew this season and brought with him our most significant change since the start of the show. It's been quite the struggle for him too. Banished by the rest of the Klingons and unable to adapt to life on the station, he's mostly kept to himself when he's not judging Odo's security methods or being accused of war crimes. It's all a far cry from his time on the former flagship, not least of which because it's O'Brien who regularly gets the shit knocked out of him now. He's still found time to track down a sacred artifact with a hero, mind murder his brother, and start whatever the hell he and Dax have got going on. Not bad for a character who wasn't here 26 episodes ago. Season 4 is the season of changes. Changes to the cast, changes to the direction of the plot, even changes to the title music. For those of you who are wondering, I prefer the first version, as I think its mournful tone is a better fit for the subject matter. Were all these changes a shot in the arm the show needed, or pointless meddling from studio execs chasing ratings? Who knows? We don't have access to an alternate history where those changes weren't made. Maybe there's a universe where Deep Space Nine Season 33 is airing now because it was left alone, or maybe it got shit-canned at 4 like Enterprise. Such armchair coaching should always be taken with a healthy pinch of salt. One thing we do know is that Season 4 was very well received, and a number of critics called it the most solid season of any Star Trek show to date. It's hard to argue with that, as the quality is mostly consistent throughout, even if it does spend a fair bit of time bypassing the stuff we spent 3 years building up. That's not to say it ignores those plot threads, though. We still have some progress regarding the Dominion, both in their machinations and internal strife. Cardassia receives attention too, albeit tangentially to other plots, and with a heavy, and I believe misguided, slant towards softening the image of Seagull Dukat. Only Bajor gets thoroughly ignored, and I think a season without any scheming from Kai Sin, the Delphic douchebag, is all the poorer for its absence. And maybe that's the single criticism now I think about it. DS9 excels at giving us bastards. The absence of Kai Sin and the shift in tone for Seagull Dukat rob us of some of the multi-layered scumbaggery we've had to date. We still get Odetta and Brunt, along with the introduction of Uncle Wayoon the Creepy, all of whom certainly have their own charms and are fun to see, but they don't match the pure arsehole value of our star baddies. Shaking things up is all well and good, but it's still worth thinking about the pieces that don't fit afterwards. Thankfully, that's a view shared by those in charge. Season 5 is very much a case of bringing everything back in line again. We'll refocus on the stories we've already got ticking over and get back to telling the grand arc once more. What's been added doesn't get tossed out, but it will be weaved into the tapestry already in progress. Quite how much of that tapestry will remain when the shooting starts is another matter. Because the fire is coming. Introducing a nefarious, quadrant-spanning empire as a nemesis is all well and good, but you can't have them be a background threat forever. Sooner or later, you have to commit to lighting the fuse. Another batch of episodes covered, and another chance to thank those generous souls who put their money where their mouths are. These people gave their hard-earned, or perhaps artfully stolen cash, to make the good ship Pedant keep on ticking for another few months. Praise be to them, and may the profits forever make their dropped toast land butter up. If exchanging funds for a few pixels on the screens of 1,000 strangers sounds like a good deal to you, there's a link to join them somewhere on the screen, probably. I don't know, I haven't made it yet because I'm still recording the audio. As to our unsung red shirts who are watching these things on the reg, my endlessly replenishing thanks to you. Your continued presence here helps convince me this is a career rather than a midlife crisis, and the importance of you driving away such existential dread cannot be overstated. End of summary.